Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's me again, Chelsea, and today we're going to be talking about my favourite books of 2020. Now, I'm pretty sure all of these are new releases bar a few, which I'm quite impressed with because I am not usually a new release reader. Before coming on BookTube and joining like Bookstagram and all of the book community, I was very much the sort of person that was on a backlist. I'd just read everything that I needed to catch up on, and that was what was on my shelves. But now I'm reading new releases and I love it. I love it so much. So let's get straight on in. So the first book I'm going to talk about is This Vicious Cure by Emily Sue Vedder. This is the final installment in the This Mortal Coil trilogy, and oh my goodness, what a cracking ending. I love this series. The premise of this whole story is you are following a young girl called Kat, whose father is a genius scientist, and he's been taken by the government essentially to work on a cure for the outbreak that is happening within this book. Now, you follow her and a soldier who appears at her door called Cole through their journey of trying to get the cure for this outbreak, and oh my goodness, what a time to read this. This came out in like March, I think, maybe February, so obviously when this whole New World situation kicked off, I was reading this book and the rest of the trilogy because I wanted to reread it, and I love it. I recommend this series to everyone. If you love smart characters, especially smart female characters and STEM-based books, like I don't count myself as an academic, but this series, oh my goodness, I loved it. I loved the characters. I fell in love with Cole. I fell in love with Kat and then fell out of love with Kat and then fell back in love with her because it's just a journey, and I recommend this to everyone. My next favourite is probably a lot of people's favourites, as are a few of these books, because I have been reading hyped mainstream books, I guess you could say, and that is Addy LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Oh my goodness, I love this book. It was amazing. It was incredible. It was fantastic. I don't know how many other words to use for this book. The writing was beautiful. After reading this, I went back to read other books that have been on my list, and I couldn't actually read anything else unless I knew it wasn't meant to be beautifully written. This book is beautifully written. I absolutely loved it. And then when I went to my favourite, one of my, OG favourite writers, Christopher Paolini, I was like, this writing isn't as beautiful. But that is because that is not his writing style. Read this. If you haven't read it, read it. I think a lot of people do say they can understand why people love it or hate it. It is quite a Marmite book, and I honestly did not think I would love it as much as I love it, but I absolutely adored this book and I recommend it to everyone. The next book that I am going to talk about is a middle grade book that I actually did not expect to love as much as I did, and that is House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Cloon. I adored this book. I cannot remember what month I read this book and I reviewed this book, but oh my goodness, I raved about it because it's great. It's an amazing book. The characters are fantastic. They are so lifelike, and I kind of feel daft saying that, but I do feel as though sometimes when you read a book, the characters don't feel like real people, and in this book that is definitely not the case. I loved all the kids that were in this. They were so heartwarming. The adults in this book were amazing. The whole premise of this book, the fact that Linus is in a boring job, but his passion is assessing these care homes that cater for magical children, that when he gets to this island that is his next assignment, you just see him grow and blossom, and I love it. I loved it so much. Read that one too. The next favourite that I'm going to talk about is Suffern and Dove by Shelby Mahoran. Now, I know I'm a little bit late to the party with this book. I did read it this year. I know it came out last year. I am gutted that I was not part of Fairy Loot when they did this amazing edition. This is the reprint, so it does not have the artwork on the back of the Just jacket, which does hurt me a little bit, but we're not paying the crazy prices for a book. No. I fell in love again. I'm gonna say that a lot. My main thing for making a book my favourite is the characters. That is what I live for. And Lou and Reed in this book, oh, I loved them. I loved the enemy to lovers trope. did not realise that that was actually one of my favourite tropes until I read this book. The story of this as well, the fact that Lou is a witch and Reed is a witch hunter, and one indiscretion in the public eye is what brings them together and basically gets them stuck together. Just the whole relationship was amazing. I love the fact that it is not love at first sight. I have a real hate for that trope. Real deep hate for that trope. Personally, I don't feel like it's realistic. This was realistic. Being stuck with someone that you absolutely hate and who you know has a hatred, and if they knew who you really were would try and kill you, and then just living with them and finding out little bits of information about them and then slowly falling in love. Beautifully done. An arc that I reviewed this year that has got to be probably my favourite arc of this year is the Cancer Ladies Running Club by Josie Lloyd. Now, the premise of this book is that the main character finds out that she has got breast cancer, and she, funnily enough, does end up joining a running club, but she makes friends with the lady who she sees running around the park that is just outside the hospital. That is the first instance where they decide to make the Cancer Ladies Running Club, and then they find someone else who has just been diagnosed with breast cancer, and then she joins, and it's just a beautiful story about friendship and struggling through things and not really understanding what other people are going through. And you know what, the whole fact that her actual real life best friend wasn't actually the nicest person is also quite realistic, because sometimes that does happen. Sometimes you find that when you're going through the worst crisis for yourself, or you get given the worst news you could possibly think of, your best friend is not actually there for you. And I think that this book just describes that whole transition and that whole thought process and just general journey so beautifully. Like, I recommend this book. I thought it was fantastic and brilliant and beautiful, and I'm going to be doing that quite a few times, I think, but I recommend that book. Now, the next book I read earlier this year, and again, I'm a little bit late on the train, but the sequel came out this year, and that is Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I love this. I love the fact that it is multiple personalities. This is multiple personalities done right, in my opinion. We got a perspective from everyone in Squad 312, and that is just what I needed. You got to see everyone's thought processes, and personally, I did think that some members in this book were not given as many chapters, or was that the second book? I don't know, one of them. I thought that some of my favourite characters did not get as much screen time, page time as other people, and that was just because I have fallen in love with certain characters, as many people have, because this series is amazing and I can't wait for the next book. I really hope it comes out soon, and when it does come out I will do a reread. So I actually have a favourite contemporary rom-com on this list, which I did not think would ever happen, but that is Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I absolutely loved the romance in this book. Once again, enemies to lovers kind of deal, more set in high school, so a little bit less, you know, stabby. So in this book we are following Pepper, who is like swim captain, highly achieving, academic, wonderful person, and we are following Jack, who is the class clown and apparently a thorn in Pepper's side. And throughout this whole book their relationship is just really well done, in my opinion. So they both run social media pages for their family's businesses. The whole story sparks off when Pepper's mum's business, Big League Burger, is called out for apparently stealing a recipe for Jack's family run deli, and the whole thing is just so well done. And the fact that a lot of this book as well doesn't just show the conflict, it also shows what's going on in both of their respective lives. It shows what's going on with their friends, their family, their home life, and I just felt warm and fuzzy throughout the whole thing with the relationship that bloomed eventually. It was fantastic, really well done. The second and last contemporary young adult fiction-y book thing on this list is Starfish by Akemi Dawn Bowman, and again I loved the way this whole book was written. I thought it was beautiful, the characters were amazing. The main girl we are following is called Kiko, and oh my goodness, I just want to hug her all the time. It just goes, the book is just following her growing growing up, basically figuring out how she feels towards boys, how she feels because she is half Japanese and half white, and her mother is a bit of a narcissist, so that must be pretty tough to grow up in that shadow. And I recommend this book as well. I mean, there are a lot of trigger warnings for that book, so please check them out, but it was beautiful. It was one of those books that I was like, well, if I actually cried at books, I probably would have cried at that one, just for how beautiful it was. It was so beautiful. Like, I just keep saying that, and I'm pretty sure in my wrap up of that book I said the exact same thing. It was just such a beautiful story to read, especially through someone's eyes who is actually struggling to come to terms with their culture and how they think people look at them. I thought it was quite eye-opening. Beautifully done. Fantastic. Please, again, check trigger warnings before you read this book, but I recommend it. I only have one non-fiction on this list for this year, and that is Becoming by Michelle Obama, and do I have to say more? I love this book. I love all of these books on this list, but especially the fact that you're reading a book about an amazing woman and she's so inspirational that I was sat there the whole time because I listened to it. I didn't actually read it. I found that when I was reading it, I was really struggling on concentrating, purely for the fact that when I started reading it, it was like March, everything had just kicked off, and I really wanted to just delve into a fantasy world where none of the real world mattered anymore. But listening to it was the best decision I could have made. She narrates it herself and it's so amazing. Like, listening to her life, for how she grew up, where she went to college, how she met Barack, like, oh my goodness. It's one of those books that when an author narrates their own book, it kind of makes you feel like you know them more, and you're like, oh yeah, that's my friend. You don't really know them, but that is how I felt. It was a very casual book, I think, in that regard of, it did feel as though you were sitting down and talking to your friend about their life, and I thought that was brilliant. And finally, the final book of this year that I absolutely loved, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people did, was this one. House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. Oh my goodness. This was probably like the second or third Sarah J. Maas book I actually finished. I'm partway through reading the ACOTAR series, and I'm partway through reading the Throne of Glass series. I am so looking forward to getting into both of those series now that I have read this, because this book was amazing. The characters were amazing, the story was amazing, but the writing was amazing in my opinion, and I can understand why there are so many people, especially on BookTube, that say they are trash for Sarah J. Maas, because I think I'm joining that club. Oh my goodness, I love this book. I recommend it 110%. Read it. Like, I'm not even going to need to give a summary because this book has been everywhere. Right, that is everything for this video. That is all of the books that I think are my top favourites. Those are my top 10 favourites of 2020, and I think I've got a pretty decent stack going on, if I'm honest. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a like. It really supports me and my channel. Leave me a comment down below. What were your favourite books of 2020? Were any of the ones that are on my list also on your list? Let's have a bit of a chat. And if you want to see more from me, I am still doing Vlogmas. There will be one coming on Sunday, and there are 3 fantastic videos, in my opinion, coming next week for Christmas week. Drop me a subscribe if you want to keep up with me for all of those. But that is all from me today, guys. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you soon in the next video. Bye.